Having a conversation this morning with Winneshiek County Sheriff Dan Marx. Dan and the sheriff's office recently released its 2023 annual report in regards to calls for service, accidents, charges, civil service, jail, etc. And Dan, before we get into the weeds on those specific numbers, when it comes to this report, what does it tell you? What doesn't it tell you?
That's a great question, Darren. And yeah, so this report should always be looked at as a general snapshot or synopsis of some of the actual numbers that we have, but it is not encompassing and it does not tell the whole story. As anyone knows who's being honest, numbers are always need to be looked at within context. So for instance, we could have one call to service that generates one stat, and it could be a case that maybe takes us 3 months to investigate. We could, for instance, have 20 calls to service, calls for service that generate 20 stats, and that might, all 20 of them combined, we may be handled in less than 2 days. So it's not necessarily telling. Numbers are always important to give us a picture of what's going on, but they don't always tell the whole story. So they should always be looked at within context. And there's several numbers within here that I look at. One of them is, besides that, one of them is, traffic warnings. It shows that they've been cut in over half from the previous year. And I don't think that's accurate. What the situation is there is the verbal traffic warnings are not getting logged into the numbers. We're making some changes on that going forward. So only the written traffic warnings are getting logged into the numbers. So when you look at our traffic warnings, for instance, in 2022, going from 268 in 22 to 122 in 2003, that's misleading. And that's why we need to fix it going forward, because it's a matter of what's getting logged, what's happening verbally versus what's getting into the system.
And on that front, you go back in the history for overall calls for service in 2020, there was 6,517. And the last 3 years, there have been over 9,000 calls for service. Did you change the way a call for service got logged into this report at that time?
Yeah, there's a real clean explanation for that. We switched record keeping systems that did a better job of tracking our calls.
Well, simply put, anything related to this report stand out to you, or is it one of those situations where a lot of the numbers seemingly are the same from the previous year?
Yeah, contrary to most years where we can see a trend and we see certain numbers either plummet or spike, this year we didn't really see that. We saw some things go up, some things go down. Our overall calls were up by about 100, almost exactly 100. Pretty minimal increase compared to what we've seen in the past. So no, we didn't see a lot of trends change from 2022 to 2023. Very different than what we had seen from like 20 and 21. And I know part of it is the record keeping system changes stats, but there was some real differences in trends that we saw kind of through that 20 and 21, where things kind of leveled off these last couple of years through 22 and 23, where we didn't see a lot of things that really stood out as being tremendously different from years past.
One stat I'm looking at, the total accidents reported, they were down slightly in 2023, but car deer accidents were down a relatively significant number this year, down about 72 from the previous year. Are hunters doing a better job of cleaning out the herd? Are deer getting smart enough to stay away from the paved roads? What's happening there?
Well, I think it's several factors, and I'm gonna take a guess that it's probably a combination of an all of the above situation. Perhaps the deer are getting smarter and they're looking both ways before they cross the road. I don't think it's probably that one, but we can look at our motorists getting more aware of scanning the ditches and driving slower during that dawn and dusk time period, to where the hits aren't happening quite like they used to. it could be a matter of, the deer population is being managed a little better to where there aren't quite as many deer out there. And the other reality is we only have stats in what was reported. So we hear about a lot of deer accidents. We see the same as all the other motorists do, that we'll be driving down the highway and we see deer that have obviously been hit and we didn't receive a call on it. So we don't know what we don't know. And the people that are going on and just settling up directly with their insurance companies, of course, that doesn't make it into our stats. And I do think there's a lot more of that happening as well. I think the insurance companies have gotten a lot more relaxed on when they used to require a police report or a law enforcement report from the sheriff's office every time something happened. I think with deer hits, they got so prevalent that they're not being as picky with their customers anymore. And therefore people aren't calling us as much, because the main reason they call us in general, unless they're just stranded alongside the road, is they want to have a police report so they can collect on insurance and make sure that everything goes smoothly that way. So I think that's a major factor as well.
The county did see a 24% increase in personal injury accidents, and the number of fatalities in accidents matched a 6-year high as well. Anything to conclude there?
Yeah, we had a bad year when it comes to personal injury accidents, and especially the fatal accidents that we had. It is a 5-year high. And I will point out that they stemmed from just a few accidents that unfortunately had 2 of the 3 fatalities we had multiple people killed in those accidents. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
And I know I remember having a conversation, I can't remember if it was last summer or the summer before, that there was a significant increase in drug-related crimes in Winneshiek County. Are you seeing a trend in any direction related specifically to drug-related crimes?
We are. If we have seen a spike in something that's significant and notable, it would certainly be from the drug perspective. Drugs and let me just refer back here to make sure I'm being accurate. There's 2 notable increases, and that would be, and I'll get to both of them, but that would be drug related offenses and burglaries, those 2. And oftentimes they go hand in hand. We've seen a significant spike in both. And I think the drug related, I equate that to just our deputies and our investigators and especially our drug investigators doing a very good job at detecting these crimes, following up on leads that we get from the public, which are immensely important in drug related activity, and following through and seeing these cases through to charges and most of the time convictions. So one thing kind of leads to another, and success builds on success. And I'm fortunate to have an excellent group of deputies who go after this stuff, and they go after it hard. We've been sent a clear message from the people we serve, our bosses, in the public, our citizens, that is what they want a focal point on. They want drug activity dealt with. Nobody wants a drug house next to their house. And we've listened to them, and we go after it hard, and we do put a priority on that. Likewise, we've seen burglaries and attempted burglaries go up significantly as well. And I think a lot of that has to do with drug activity. When people get desperate, things happen. I still want to point out that overall our burglaries and attempted burglaries are not that many, but it's still a spike from what we've seen in the past.
And I know when it comes to statistics, you just brought up the burglaries and attempted burglaries aren't that many. But if it happens to you, it's one too many, correct?
Absolutely. And that's the key, what you just said, Darren. If there's 1 or if there's 100, if it happens to you or your family, it's important. And we look at that with every crime. It doesn't matter if it's a dent in someone's mailbox or if it's whatever it might be, no matter how seemingly small the crime is or how seemingly large the crime is, when it happens to you or an individual or person that you know and love, it hits home. And we need to take every one of those seriously. And especially when you take something like a home invasion or a burglary, that is very personal. That gets to the heart and the core of your home and your personal space and your private space. And when you are the victim of something like that happening, it's very personal, and it's an invasion, and it's a personal invasion, not only a home invasion, it's a personal invasion. And we take that extremely seriously.
On the drug-related front, just north of Winneshiek County, marijuana is now legal. Have you dealt with any issues related to that, being right next door to a state now that where recreational marijuana is not a legality situation or a drug-related offense?
We have. I wouldn't say it's caused us a major issue. I want to be fair in how I state it, but we have just recently, a few weeks ago, I can recall a certain situation where a gentleman ran into a situation on his way down from Minnesota, and it does remain illegal here. So I guess said we respect the laws of the other states, but I will just put out there that it's still illegal in Iowa, and we'll still enforce it in Iowa.
When it comes to this overall numbers, and we hit on the fact that you look at the context of the numbers and not just the numbers themselves, what does the sheriff's office do with this report, and how do you use this report moving forward to best serve the public?
Well, we have to look at the trends and look at what's happening, what's working well, where are we successful, and where are we falling short. And it also is an opportunity for the people we serve to look at the numbers and know what they're getting for their money. I mean, our office is funded on the backs of the taxpayers. That's just a reality. And they should know what they're getting for their money. They should know how far their dollars being stretched, and are they getting what they're paying for. And so I think it's good for the public to see what's going on and the transparency, to know what we're doing. That's why we do regular news releases almost every day. Every time we have a news release to put out, anything that's legal to be public information. I encourage people to call if they have any questions of any other things that maybe we're not putting out that they want to know about. And it's important for them to know what we're doing. Equally, it's important for us to know what their concerns are, so we can build policy around it, and we can put a focal point on those areas.
And what tops that, shall we say, need to improve list from your office's perspective right now?
We've been trying to get ahead of the scam issue, but we continue to see people falling victim to it. We've done multiple, I'll call it PSAs. I have one out right now on your station, Darren, on KVIK. Just recorded it last week. So people will have the displeasure of having to hear my voice once in a while, but I do get talking about scams, and we keep pushing forward on that. We keep making that a priority, and unfortunately, we keep seeing people falling for them. Just being straight about that. We just had one the other day where it was an unfortunate situation, and thousands upon thousands of dollars of hard-earned cash was being sent to an illegitimate location that was not at all as it was framed to be, and just putting it, frankly, it was a scam. And even when we confront the victims of the scam and we're able to intercept and stop people from doing this, they still oftentimes just don't believe us. They argue with us that it is legit, and we struggle to get them to understand the gravity of what they're doing, and that they're about to lose their life savings if they continue. And it's very sad. And we've been fortunate that we try to get family members involved and things like that can maybe relate to them better, and maybe be able to communicate that message better than maybe what we are if we're not being successful. But we have to keep that message out there. It's something that's near and dear to me, something I've put a focal point on, and something that maybe there's more success in the time and energy we've put into it than what I'm seeing. But not to sound like a pessimist, but unfortunately, it doesn't always feel like it. It seems they're coming in daily, and we keep having people fall for this stuff. And So it's important to keep that message out, and we need to keep pushing on that and do a better job of keeping people from falling victim to these.
When it comes to the jurisdiction of the scam, I'm assuming a lot of the people that fall victim or get contacted with these situations in Winneshiek County, the contact is coming from outside of the county. How does that jurisdictionally work, knowing the fact that the people doing bad things are outside of Winneshiek County, but the victims are inside of Winneshiek County?
Well, it's not ideal. It does make for a little trickier of a situation. I will say that at least if it's in the state or even in the United States, even in the country, it puts us in a better position than when these scams are coming from somewhere outside of the United States. Our hands are very much tied when it comes from outside the United States. Prevention is the key. When it comes to just working with other agencies, we've been relatively successful in being able to do that, especially if there are other state agencies or even other states. We've had pretty good luck being able to get cooperation with other law enforcement agencies. Our doctrine here at the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office is we're going to look out for victims. And so they rely on us. We're their representative. So regardless of whose jurisdiction it is, we push hard on their behalf. If it's something we can act on, intercept, file charges on, we'll do it. But there's just certain times where we can't, and we have to rely on another agency. And in those cases, we push hard to get that cooperation with those other agencies, because if we can't get the cooperation with them, the citizen we're working with sure as heck isn't going to be able to. I mean, that we are their representative, and we take that very seriously. They're the ones that are out the money. We're their advocate.
And related to scams, and I know scams are getting more creative. There probably isn't a scam that is the same from year to year and perhaps even day to day. So generalizing this might be a little difficult, but in general, what advice do you have for people to avoid getting themselves into these situations?
Give me a second to think on that, Darren, because it depends on what the scam is. I'll start with, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. That's one form of a scam where, those, and I'm going to back up. If people can hear some background noise here, we're doing a little remodeling in the sheriff's office here, so you might hear some construction. So I apologize for the background noise.
Hey, they're being very quiet, so hey,
yeah,
very efficient.
Yeah, they've done a good job. They're being very considerate. So, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. One of the scams we see is, that somebody's won like a clearinghouse sweepstakes type of situation, usually what the scam usually comes down to is, well, you need to pay the taxes on this up front before we can send you the money. So you send us X amount of money, and once we receive that, we'll send you back X amount of money. Well, anybody that's won something like that, which is probably very few of us, but anybody that has probably knows that those taxes are taken out on the front side before that money is turned over to you. So that's just not how that works. Another thing to be vigilant of that we see quite often, or I would call it emotional scams that tug at the heartstrings of someone you love or that you think loves you. And one of them would be for people in the dating arena, maybe widowed people that end up with somebody claiming to be in love with them and building a relationship. And these scammers are patient. They might take that over the course of quite a bit of time. They might build this relationship over the course of months. And eventually they'll say, I need money, I'm down on this, or I want to fly out and see you, but I don't have any money to do it. Or they'll have some hook, some bait that they can hook you with of why they need X amount of money. Send cash for whatever reason. They always have an excuse that sounds good on the surface, but if you think about it, quickly is apparent that it's not. It's not reasonable what they're asking for. That's one that we see happening a lot. We call it the dating or romance scam, The second one that kind of tugs at the heartstrings of someone you love or care about is where someone calls, oftentimes claiming to be a grandchild of the person they're calling, and that they say they're in trouble of some sort. They're maybe in jail. They sometimes even say in another country, because the scammer's probably in another country. And they frame it as, don't tell mom and dad, or don't tell anybody, or it'll get worse. This has to stay just between us. And they convince them to send money. Once they do, of course, the money's gone. And they convince them not to get a second opinion from a family member, to not call anybody else, to double check or verify this information, because they've got them convinced that something worse will happen if they do, that it has to stay a secret. Those would be the biggest things that I would say to be vigilant of, that we see the most that people are falling for. There's obviously all kinds of other ones out there. A scam is only limited to the human imagination, which can get quite imaginative at times. I'll leave it at that. So.
And we'll leave it this way. As long as you got the form this morning, anything else you want to pass on to the public from the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office?
Just continue to support us and report things. If you see something, say something. If something looks suspicious, trust us enough to give us the information. If it turns out to be nothing, that's fantastic. Give us a chance to look into it on the front side and hopefully prevent something worse happening later on. So just to prevent things on that front side and allow us the opportunity to get ahead of it. It's so much easier to have a successful outcome when we can get ahead of something versus working at it from the backside after kind of the situation's off the cliff.
All right, Dan, we appreciate you taking some time telling us about everything going on at the Winneshiek County Sheriff's Office. Thanks for the time, and thank you and all your deputies for what you do for our communities and to keep our county as safe as possible.
Yeah, no, thank you for the time, Darren. And actually, this is a good time to end it. I just had our county auditor, Ben Steinis, walk in my office and have a brief meeting with him. And so you picked a real good time. I don't know if Ben wants to say hi here, but
Hey.
Hello, Ben. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing excellent. How about yourself?
Doing great. Doing great.
This is live real-time interviewing.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Darren. Appreciate the time. And yeah, the other thing I would put out to everyone, if they ever have any questions or concerns about anything, give us a call. We have an open door policy, and we love to hear from people. That's the backbone of how we proceed forward.
Winneshiek County Sheriff Dan Marx.